Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Joe Keain, and he owns PodFit Podiatry in Adelaide, South Australia. And today, we are going to talk about a really cool topic, transitioning from an employee to a business owner. And I reckon a lot of people's ears have just pricked up now going, oh, tell us more. So, Joe, how are you doing?
Very well, mate. How are you?
I'm good. And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be on. I've listened to, I think, all of the episodes. So
have I. more than once. Because what happens is when I do the editing, that's when I actually hear more of the actual conversation, because someone might be explaining something in a bit of detail and you're going through it and you're hearing it at the time. But when you hear it a second time, you go, oh, wow, okay, I didn't hear that the first time, even though I was there for the interview. So before we get into transitioning from an employee to a business owner, what is the Joe Keain story? What got you into podiatry?
So classic case of like flat feet as a kid, severs, that kind of thing. But what actually got me into podiatry was I wanted to be a physio originally, but didn't quite get a high enough TER or ATAR, whatever it was at the time. So I went to uni and did human movement, which is like a health science course for my first year. And then during that year was running a fair bit and got really bad shin splints and couldn't run for about 3 months, even walking to uni, which was only 12 minutes, like really hurt. So ended up going to a physio and getting orthotics and exercises and got better. And then I was like, wait a minute, aren't like podiatrists meant to do orthotics? And kind of looked into that a bit more and was like, oh, podiatry looks like a cool course. So ended up just swapping over with a few mates and then, never really looked back.
So you had a few friends that were doing human movements that all switched to podiatry
so
at the
like
same
three
time.
or four of us swapped over.
Okay.
In the same time. So it was great.
So you only did the first year of human movements?
Yeah, just the first year. Yeah.
Did you ever think about going back and finishing it?
Look, to be honest, not really. Like I really enjoyed that first year of human movement, met a lot of great people, and I really enjoyed like the course content, but there's like human movement isn't a job. So I would have had to do a master's of something. So I was kind of like, why waste 2 more years? Why not just go straight into a degree where I've got like a title when I come out?
You're going to be really qualified at McDonald's. Well, actually,
highly qualified PE teacher.
Weren't you? You're working at Athlete's Foot that I read on your website. So you were doing that while you were doing human movements as well? Just
podiatry. So I did that for 4 years while I was studying podiatry.
Okay. How did you find working at the Athlete's Foot? I always found every person that ever worked with me who worked at the Athlete's Foot and then came and worked with me were the best podiatrists to employ, bar none. They were, but I don't know what it was. I don't know. I think off the top of my head, they learnt and developed communication skills. It wasn't the footwear knowledge. It was the knowledge of knowing how to talk to a human being.
Definitely. I agree. Because shoes are shoes. Like you can all learn about shoe models and that kind of thing, materials, pictures, all that kind of stuff. But I agree with you, learning to approach that person in the first 60 seconds when they come in the store. So you've got to put yourself out there, chat to them and sort of winning them over in that sale process. And then you learn about the shoes too. So I think definitely you build up all those skills you need as a podiatrist while you're working retail.
Yeah. And I did have some people who worked at a bar while they were going to uni, and they were different employees again. Now, if anyone's listening to this, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the other ones, but it's like they got in a mode of 4 years while at uni of learning how to pick up women or picking up guys, if it happened to be a female. And then they thought my clinic was a pickup joint. I'm going, you can't do that. You can't hit on the patients. It's just, no, don't do that. There's one guy in particular that comes to mind. Didn't work out.
Yeah, right. Well, I didn't have that issue when I started. Just quite a lot of shoe knowledge.
So with the Athlete's Foot, I'm just curious, did they do much training in the communication side of things, or was that a natural gift that you just had that kept the job?
Look, to be fair, I've always worked kind of retail jobs. So I've kind of had that, that communication side. There was definitely training, probably not so much exact communication, but a lot of training around the shoes and being able to talk to sales reps and people that come in. So not so much customer communication, but definitely just communication in general around how you say certain things about the shoes.
Yeah. And I think just that 4 years of doing it, you just then get comfortable talking with people.
Yeah, it becomes like a habit. So you just used to approaching them in the store, having a chat, giving them info, and then processing that sale.
Yeah. So once you finished podiatry, one, you enjoyed it, obviously. Where did you start working once you graduated?
So when I first started working, I was at like a place in Adelaide that does home care visits.
Okay.
So I was 1 day a week in the clinic and then 4 days a week on the road doing home care visits, like a very heavy EPC care plan based stuff.
Do you enjoy that side of things?
Look, I enjoyed certain parts, but I enjoyed like the freedom of being on the road by myself, listening to music, podcasts, that kind of thing. But after say 12 to 18 months doing home visits and just routine care for the majority of the clients gets a bit old. So it was good in one way, but I felt at the same time I didn't quite progress or learn the skills in biomechanics that I really wanted to. So I might have seen one plantar heel pain a fortnight and that was it.
Yeah, and that didn't dishearten you in any way about podiatry, thinking, is this
heaps.
all there is? I did.
Definitely, yeah. So that year, sort of around the 12-month to 18-month mark, I was like, oh, is this all podiatry? It's like I studied 4 years and I'm trimming nails and that's it. So I was going to leave. I was going to leave the profession. I was looking at one-way tickets around the world, like plane tickets.
Yeah.
And was going to buy one. I rang my mum and I was like, oh, fuck this. And then...
Did you just drop the F-bomb then? Okay, now we put an E on the episode. That's fine. No, that's okay. Keep going.
And I've said F this mum, so I haven't even just left it at the F word. But I called my mum and I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm done with the profession, done with podiatry. And then I got called by the Podiatry Association person in South Australia. And I was like, oh, there's a job at this place called PodFit going, which is like high biomechanics. Like I heard you were looking for one. You should apply. And so I applied and ended up getting the job and I was like, okay, maybe I'll stick podiatry out for a bit more. And like, if in 6 months I still don't like it, I'll do something else. And then, that really changed the trajectory of my career. Like I loved working at PodFit and sort of got to experience all those things I was lacking at my previous job.
So what happened with doing home visits for 18 months and then getting a clinic where there was more biomechanics? How did you feel your skills? Did you feel you'd lost a lot by not using them over that 18-month period?
Yeah, I definitely felt like a bit rusty and a bit nervous with the biomechanics stuff. But thankfully, Mel, my business partner now, who was then my boss, really supported me and sort of upskilled me to get to where I needed to be. So between her and her husband, Andrew, and another physio owner, Peter, between the three of them and the team, they really helped, I guess, build that confidence back up. Yeah.
In mixed martial arts, they refer to it as ring rust.
Yeah.
In Sydney, it might be something completely different. But I told you, I say things that I'm not supposed to. Anyway.
It's 1 for 1, mate.
But because I know in mixed martial arts, they talk about certain professional fighters. And if they've had an injury or something's happened and they haven't fought for 2 years, and then they come back, even though they've still been training at the gym, just by then not applying it inside the ring and training are two completely different things. And some of them take to it really fast, and others will still say, no, it took them a little while to sort of get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, definitely. Theory is one thing, but actually putting that to practice with clients is another thing.
Yeah. And that was something Jonathan Small said a few episodes back now, he said, it's really important that you get all these clinical skills at university. You've got all the basics there. The sooner you start applying them all, the better you're going to be. Whereas if you limit your knowledge to, say, general care and you don't use the biomechanical side, you can quickly lose that skill set.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with general care. I still like doing nail care and skin care and all that kind of stuff. That's your bread and butter. But you're right. The majority of what I see now is definitely biomechanics based. If you don't have that skill set and that confidence, then you're kind of leaving a lot on the table. Yeah.
And I think that's what he was referring to, that it's some of them will be doing general care, but they might even have their own business and they're doing the general side of things really, really well. But because they haven't done the biomechanics side for so long, they get a little bit frightened of it. Yeah. Instead of just putting their toe back in the water and trying to upskill, they just go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't do that side of podiatry. Imagine going to a dentist and they don't say, oh, sorry, I don't do fillings. What do you mean you don't do fillings? No, I just do extractions. That's it. So that's why I reckon podiatrists need to have a broad scope and everything.
Definitely.
Even biomechanical podiatrists, I think, still need to know how to use a scalpel.
Yeah, mate, it's all important. It all encompasses. That's what we do.
So once you transitioned and you're working at PodFit,
yes,
you started getting more into the biomechanics, or you decided not to take your one-way ticket to Mexico. And and live on the beach drinking Coronas. What a terrible life that would be. So what was it that kept you in though? Was there a certain part of it that you sort of went, this is what I really like in podiatry?
Yeah, I think it was the team definitely at first, like just being, because when I was on the road, like obviously by yourself a lot,
Oh yeah,
and didn't get to see my boss very often. When I was in the clinic, it was just me and the receptionist for the whole day. So not a lot of social support in that setting. And so, yeah, coming into a team where there was, physio, massage therapists as well, and they were all kind of young and sort of energetic, was awesome. So like, that's what drew me initially, and like, I really enjoyed. And then having structured support and structured mentoring was really good too.
yeah.
So every week I'd have at least half an hour with Mel one-on-one to discuss, any clients we need to talk about that I was having trouble with. We'd have a whole team PD, so massage, podiatry, physio, 1 hour run on a certain topic, and then a very structured kind of systems, which is really good as well.
Okay, so you worked for them for a number of years, but you're still at PodFit now. Well, you own PodFit.
Correct. I own part of it. So just in case Mel's listening, I only own part of it. She's also an owner, and Mel does a great job.
Yeah, but Mel, he's the boss. No, I'm just
look, Mel, I'm coming for you.
Yeah,
you are good.
Yeah. He's coming for you. So, what did you buy into the practice? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I did. So I came on board January 1st this year as a part owner.
Okay, what went off in your head to make you think, okay, I'm working for these people, I'm really enjoying it, mentoring's great, love the business. What was it that, did you approach them and say, I want to buy in, or did they approach you and say, would you like to buy in?
Very funny story, actually. 2 years ago at our Christmas show, we went on a wine tour, and I was like, you know what? Got to the end of the day, I was like, I'll throw my hat in the ring, see what Mel thinks. And I just kind of bowed her up in the corner of the pub and was like, look, I'd love to come on board as an owner. What do you think? And she was like, oh, yeah, I guess we could talk about that. And then for the next 12 months, we just kind of planned what that would look like. And
Mel sobered up the next day. And
sobered up and didn't say no still. So
yeah, that's a good sign.
It worked out well. And yeah, so that was it. And then for the next 12 months, we just kind of put some things in place, certain things I need to tick off, upskill in certain areas and that kind of thing, and see more behind the scenes of the business stuff. Because up until then, I was just consulting, and that was it.
So had you thought about it prior to having the Dutch courage and having a few drinks to then approaching her about this? Because I think it's really important that if somebody's working at a clinic, because I had somebody that was working with me, and then I helped them set up their own clinic in another town. But we were talking years afterwards, and then she said to me, I would have loved to have just bought in where you were. And I'm thinking, I wish you had told me.
Yeah. So previous to that, I don't know if Mel knows this. I don't know if I told her because I didn't want to ruin my chances, but I was looking to start my own practice. So I was looking at like a GP room, that kind of thing, how much insurance would cost, what I'd need, all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of saving up money to do that. So when I was kind of between PodFit and the other place I was working at originally, so it wasn't like just when I was at PodFit full time. Before that, just looking to keep my options open, because I always kind of felt that I wanted to be my own boss and, I guess create an environment that I didn't have when I first started. Podiatry was a big thing, and that's the thing that still kept me at PodFit. Like, my biggest driver is creating an environment where people, one, want to come to work, two, feel supported, and two, don't feel like, I guess, a bit disheartened like I did in that first year.
Yeah. But I think that's really important for employers to talk to their team about it. If they've got someone who is really good at what they do and thinking, okay, if they left tomorrow, would you miss them?
Yeah.
And I've had people that work with me, and when they resign or leave, move, go to another town, sometimes you go, I don't miss them. You replace them with somebody else, and 2 months later you don't miss them. Then I've had other ones who, like the person I was talking to, who went to another town that I helped set up, that I did miss them when they left. And so I think anyone listening to this, if you've got people working with you, maybe you should ask them if they want to come on board. Have that conversation.
Definitely.
So when you first approached her, okay, you're on a wine tour, but then the next day you sort of brought it up again. And what you said was about a 12-month transition into that position?
Yeah, so Mel was planning to have their first child. So she wasn't pregnant yet. Their first child, Annie's just turned 1. So I kind of knew that she was wanting to start a family at some point in the near future. And so I was like, well, this is a perfect time to ask, really. Like, I want to come on board and have more responsibility and like a bit of an ownership in things. but she also needs me to be there when she can't physically be there.
Yeah. So with how much older is Mel than you?
Mel is 2 or 3 years older than me. So not
Okay.
heaps,
So,
early
okay.
30s.
So how long had she owned the practice for before that?
She started PodFit 12 to 18 months before I joined. And before then she was working out of like a gym room.
Okay. CrossFit place. I read
CrossFit
on
place,
the website.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a relatively new business as well. And it was obviously growing.
Yeah.
So her choice probably was, does she take you on as a partner, or do you leave and go and set up an opposition?
Look,
And then she
fair,
has to go and find somebody else.
I think I had between a rock and a hard place. Not that it was ever like that, but like, I kind of knew I wanted to stay. Definitely, like I love my job. I couldn't see myself going somewhere else and working for another business. I'd have to go out on my own, but I didn't want to because I'd built a list for the last 3 years. Like I like my clients, I like the team. I just wanted to stay, but also I knew that I needed to see that growth, and I needed to know that I was working towards something that wasn't just seeing more clients. For me, that was really important.
So, and what was the transition like? Or should have got Mel in here to talk to her as well. But was it difficult going from employee to an employer? Yeah, were there certain aspects that you went, wow, there's more work involved behind the scenes than I thought?
Look, like there is work behind the scenes, definitely, but I love it all. So like I love the behind the scenes stuff. I like the business side of things, the financials. I like kind of seeing all that stuff. But the biggest change for me was actually having the perspective, because now that I do one-on-ones with the team and, younger practitioners, that perspective of, shit, these were all things Mel was talking to me about 3 years ago when I started and trying to help me learn and develop and communicate with patients in certain ways. And even like little conversations at the time, like I didn't really understand, that I get now and have that perspective. Like, oh, Mel was just trying to help me with this, but I was thinking it was this. Does that make sense?
Oh, like, no, makes perfect sense, because I know when I've had employees and they'll be asking me a question about something and I'm trying to explain to it why I do something a certain way, and they don't quite get it.
They don't have that team perspective yet because they just don't either, like they haven't been there long enough, or they don't need to see that vision yet. So they just don't have that perspective. For example, like I remember wanting to change my hours once, and Mel was like, look, we just can't do it yet because we don't have the team and that kind of stuff, and the hours don't work. At the time I was like, I don't get like why we can't just change the hours. Seeing that now, I'm like, oh, I get that from a team perspective, because that's not financially viable, or it doesn't work with the direction we're trying to go.
Yeah, I think you could write a list of all the things, like as an employer, you could write a list of all the things that employees don't get or don't understand because they're not in your shoes. So it's like, I used to say to one of the guys that used to work with me, at 5:30 when you leave and you go away on a week's holiday, you hop in your car, you drive off, you do not give this place one thought. You don't care if Mary turns up on Tuesday and, oh, you forgot to do the orthotics for her. You just, you're on holidays. You're drinking a pina colada under a palm tree, enjoying yourself. And the next time you actually think about this place is 8:30 on that Monday morning when you come back. Whereas as the business owner, I would go on holidays for the week, and the whole time I'm still checking emails and just making sure, if I was taking that, everything is done so that the no fires are going to start while I'm actually gone.
Yeah.
And even when I had everything in place where it ran like clockwork, I could go away for 3-4 weeks, come back and everything ran perfectly, but you still think about the place. You can't not think about your business.
You don't get to switch off because like you're emotionally but financially invested in it. Like it's your little baby. So like you don't, even if you want to switch off, it's always kind of there. Like for example, Mel today was like, oh, at 4 a.m. this morning, I woke up and I sent a Christmas hamper to our orthotic supplier. I was like, thank you for doing that. But like that kind of stuff, like you don't get to switch off. And then there's like the Facebook message from people that want to book in because they've seen a Facebook ad and like during the night and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you don't get to switch off.
So I sort of equate it to, you're probably too young to have children. You got any kids?
None that I know about.
Yeah, none that you're going to put your hand up and say, that's mine. So I have 3 that I know about. But what I was going to say, my youngest daughter at the moment, she's 17, just got a license. And every time she hops in that car and she drives away, I'm concerned. It's just that little bit of, and even though she's a really, really good driver, sensible, I know she's not going to do anything silly, but I'm still concerned because it's my daughter. Now I could have friends here and their son, same age, could be jumping in the car, driving somewhere. I don't care about him.
Don't care.
No. And that's how I think it's like with your business as a business owner and an employee. The employee walks away from the business and it's just, hey, I'm not there. But for us, that's your business is your child.
Yes.
It's definitely, it's something that whether, depending on what, you weren't there from the first day, but you've adopted this child from a very young age and now you're bringing it up. So you care about it.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Exactly like having a child. She's a little baby.
So when you and Mel got together, did you sit down and work out roles on who was doing what? So did one person get the role of hiring and firing, or did you both do that together? Marketing, visions, planning for the future. How do you work that out?
Yep. So pretty much all together, like all the planning stuff we do, 12-month, 5-year, 10-year, 30-year plan all together. Hiring all together. Probably the only things that are split is at the moment I'm a bit more clinically based because Mel's just had a baby, or Amy's one, but she's just come back to consulting. So I'm a bit more heavily in that area. And Mel's a bit more behind the scenes with the Facebook messages, sending out clinic app emails, that kind of thing.
Okay. So you don't have to answer this, but it'd be good if you did. You're in a partnership. Do you get paid because you're both working there? Say you were working 40 hours and Mel only worked 20 hours. Yep. Do you get paid for the hours you do? Then you split the profits of the business?
So we have a commission based as well. So we get paid base rate and commission per, how much revenue you generate and clients you see. So I get paid a commission, whereas Mel doesn't at the moment because she's not working enough hours. But then we split the profits with the percentage of like we each own. Yeah.
So you're putting the work into the business. You're getting paid for the time you're doing, plus you get to share the profits.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good setup. So definitely. Do you think down the track that you two will bring on somebody else as a partner?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is the plan?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, we've already talked about that. And it won't be, next year, but it will definitely be in the future because we want to facilitate those growth pathways for our team. So want to have someone else in there. Definitely.
So will you be looking at the people that are working with, if someone that's got a specific skill set to bring them on, or what would you look at if you were going to bring on another partner? Is there something that they have that you want instead? Anyone can put a hat on, say, I'm a podiatrist, but if they don't have the same work ethic, are there certain things you would actually look for?
Definitely. So kind of in the same way that the skills we look for when we hire, ideally we want someone who is smart, humble and hungry.
You don't want dumb.
Well, it helps.
It does help.
So smart, we mean like not just book smart, but socially smart, good communication, that kind of thing. Empathetic, high EQ. Humble, self-explanatory, doesn't have this high image of themselves, is quite down to earth, kind of knows capabilities and maybe where they're lacking a bit, but also just wants to improve, wants that growth. And then hungry, just like wants to get in there and get stuff done, has that drive to help grow the clinic, but also withhold the values that we have. So they're probably the things we look for. And I think some of those things you pick up in interviews, and that's kind of why you hire that person. You don't have interviews and get a feel for things, right? Like we know when an interview goes well and when it doesn't really go well based on the first few minutes, like, oh, this feels a bit off, or it feels really good. So that's how we kind of filter the hiring process. But then as that person stays on, can they uphold those three things throughout their, journey with us? And do we think that they can move up into a position where they are part of the team in that sort of ownership way?
Yeah. You said that you listened to most of the episodes. So do you remember James Kent?
Has he been on a few?
No, James Kent's just been on one episode. He's from Texas, and it was called Young, Poor and Single.
Yes.
And he was talking about the three things you need to have a good business: be young, because you've got so much energy and you can burn the candle at both ends and your body can actually take it. Whereas when you're in your 50s, like me, I still do it. I've still got heaps of energy. But young, poor is just because if you're poor, well, there's only one way up. And being single, it's the same thing. You've got timers on your side. You don't have to be home at a certain time, or you've got responsibilities with children.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really good point. Oh, that was why I think that was the name of that episode, Young, Poor and Single.
Yeah.
But also remember my accountant telling me the best employee you can get is the one that buys a house. He said, encourage your employees to get into debt and get married and have children. He said, because then they're not just going to leave on a whim or have a bad day and they go, oh, that's it, I'm going to pack up and leave. They're actually sort of a little bit more settled. So the employees listen to this, go, damn it, I've got a house, I've got a wife, and I've got 3 kids.
I'm locked in.
Yeah, definitely locked in.
And look, you can get out of most of those things apart from the kids, so you can always change.
Yeah, it's true. So with the business, now that you're in there, you're running it, your mindset has obviously changed from an employee. Do you still have any bad habits? Like as an employee that you go to do something, you go, that's how I'm a business owner now. I've got to step up and be a bit more responsible. Long pause.
I'm just thinking, I'm like, what would the rest of the team find annoying that I do? One this year they pulled me up on was actually I kept forgetting to empty the bin at the end of the day.
Yeah, you should be reprimanded for that.
Yeah, just at one site though. At the other one, I can find it's in my routine. But I moved to like another site and I just kept forgetting, which is out of routine. So that kind of stuff. I think like the 1% is like making sure at the end of the day, like I've taken the bin out and I've been really good at that lately. Thanks, team. But just those things like filling up gel or like shockwave gel canisters when they're finished, like putting towels in the room for the next person, all that kind of stuff. I try and stay on top of that. And now even more so, because I'm like, you know what, if I'm not doing this, then nobody else is going to do it.
That's a really, really good point. Because I always think if you want your team to follow you, then you've got to set a good example.
Yeah, mopping the floors, like cleaning dust off things, all those little things. I'll probably stay sort of 10 minutes later each day just to make sure the room looks good for when, the other person comes in the next morning. Because otherwise, if I leave it a bit crappy for them, they're going to leave it crappy for the next person and so on.
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that if you don't lead by example, anything that you do wrong or poorly, times it by 5, and that's how your team will do it. Because if you walk past a piece of paper that's sitting on the floor and they see you walk past it, look down and then just keep walking, then they go, oh, okay, so it's okay not to pick up that piece of paper.
Yeah. As soon as I start cutting corners, then it's just open slather for everyone to start cutting corners. And that, like you said, with a piece of paper or, just leaving a bit early, that kind of thing, not taking a bin out, it just cascades.
Yeah, we had a rule in place where you were not allowed to leave the clinic until you said goodbye to everybody in the clinic. Because there were a few
just walking out.
Well, there were a few times, one particular person, nice guy, but when he finished, and because he was like, at the time, he was on a like percentage. So if he finished at say 5 o'clock, he would just, and his room was at the back of the clinic, the patient would walk out and he'd just bolt. He'd just leave, wouldn't say goodbye to anyone. And the receptionist would go, oh, but we had a phone message here, you had to phone this person back. So then we put a rule in place, you can't leave until you go and say goodbye to everybody in the clinic. And that way, if anyone needed to tell you something, and even if I was with the patient, it was okay for him to come up, I'm going to stir the dog up. I keep doing that. They would knock on the door and just open and say, oh, I'm just leaving. Do you need anything? I said, no, it's all fine. And that was just a habit that we got into. Geez, it solved a lot of headaches.
Absolutely. Might have to start putting that in place.
Well, I used to do the same thing because I used to do it. Before I left, we'd arrive at the beginning of the day, say hello to everyone, and then also do the same thing when you were leaving. And it solved so many little things. And it's little things like that can make or break a business.
Absolutely. It's all those 1%ers, like you said, phoning that person back when you can't be bothered, giving them that management plan, not just emailing to them so you can go through in the consult. Like all these little things add up to the clinic being successful and kind of getting to where you want to go with your career.
So where do you see yourself taking the business over the next, say, 5 or 10 years?
So we're actually doing an expansion at the moment as we speak. So it started Wednesday. So we're expanding our Modbury clinic and getting 3 podiatry rooms in there as opposed to 1.5 we've got now. So that'll be done kind of early next year.
Yeah.
And then from there, Mel and I really want to start a shoe store in the next kind of 2 years. So, and that shoe store, like it's called Active Feet. They've got franchises through Melbourne, and starting that with 2 podiatry rooms in there, so we can keep growing our team. The plan is within the next 4 years to have a team of 12 pods. We've currently got 6.
Okay, so the Active Feet, that's a franchise, is it?
Franchise in Melbourne, yeah.
You do want an athlete's foot?
Nah.
Okay, I won't dig into that too much. Everyone's going, dig further. Why?
I refer to athlete's foot all the time. I liked working there, but I've done that. Like, not that I've owned it, but I've done that for 4 years. Like, I know what it's about. I think being the first Active Feet in South Australia too is really big. So there's much more pull than that, than putting an Active Feet next to an athlete's foot there when there's one 300 meters from us.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
Nah, doesn't work.
So what is it about the shoe store that interests you the most?
I feel like I'm going to give away all my secrets here, stuff I've been thinking about for years, but
don't worry, no one listens.
Not this one anyway. Interested in shoes, and sort of having that background at athlete's foot and being a runner, like I've always had that interest in shoes, but also something I notice with clients a lot is they're always saying like, I just wish there were some good women's shoes that looked nice, but also were good for my feet. Everything looks like grandma shoes. And in Adelaide, we don't really have any of those. Like there's Grundy shoes in Rundle Mall, and that's about it. And they don't really have a big range. So they don't stock, Frankie Fours, Baird Footwear, Revere, all those kind of things. So being able to bring those into Adelaide and actually have people come in and try them on is going to be huge. And also to be able to service existing clients that one step further. So like creating that really wow experience for them. So not only do we fix their foot pain and that kind of thing, but they can actually try shoes on with us.
Yeah, well, we had a shoe shop attached to our clinic here, and we had that 15, 18 years. We had the shoes sort of attached, and it went really well, really convenient for the patients. You do make money, but it's a lot of hard work.
Definitely.
And there's not as much money in a shoe shop as there is in running a podiatry clinic.
Yeah, and it's important to not to cut your own legs off when the clinic's not where you want it to be, and then trying to start this other side hustle, because we know that side hustles turn into actual hustles. So you can't be doing, 1 foot in each. So we've got to get PodFit to a place where it's super sustainable and has those things in place that we can start to just put a little bit of time into the shoe store. But yeah, PodFit's always going to be my baby. That's like, my number one priority.
Okay. So Mel or you, who does the marketing, or do you do it together?
I'd say majority Mel. So she'll do a lot of that stuff and then just be like, I'm going to do this. What do you think? So between that and our business coach, Shane Davis, who has PodFit Podiatry in Melbourne, in Geelong. So between those two, they sort of come up with the marketing, and we do a lot of our marketing with our physio team, so PhysioFit as well. So we do kind of joint things. Yeah,
I did notice that with your website, you've got PodFit, but you've got your own website. Then you've got PhysioFit, but then with some photos that sort of interchanged. They're on both websites, but I like it how you've kept it. You've kept it separate. Yeah.
So separate. So my business partner Mel is married to Andrew, who owns half of the PhysioFit.
Yeah.
Along with Peter as well. So we are kind of intertwined in that way, and we're on the same clinic. So our building will have podiatry, physio, and massage in it, but we are 2 separate businesses financially and website and stuff like that.
Okay, so with your marketing, do you do mostly online, or do you do a bit of old school marketing? Curiosity. I posted something in the Podiatry Business Owners Club. So anyone that's listening to this, if you're not a member of the Podiatry Business Owners Club on Facebook, come over. You just got to answer 3 simple questions, and you're in. Don't get us mixed up with the Podiatry Business Owners Group. That's the Podiatry Association. They're boring. Anyway, I posted something on there and said, who has an email newsletter? And about 30 people, I think last time I looked, sort of commented. It was 50-50. 50% use an email newsletter on a regular basis and 50% didn't. Do you have an email newsletter?
No. We do like clinic app emails, but not a newsletter. Oh,
okay.
Sorry, no, we do. We do. No, sorry. We do one once a month.
It must be a good one.
I don't do it clearly. Physio do it, and we just kind of like add stuff in. And I don't touch that. Mel does a lot of that. So yeah, we do have an email. Sorry, I was mistaken.
No, that's all right. So with your marketing in general, do you do a balance between like old school type stuff and online?
Yeah. So a lot of Google, a lot of Facebook are our two big ones online. And then we do like the old school, we sponsor a lot of sports clubs in the area and go out and do a lot of referral work with those kind of people. So lawn bowls clubs, Pilates studios, athletics clubs, soccer teams, football teams, that kind of thing.
Okay. So with the sponsorship, do you have to give up time to be there as well, or is purely just sponsoring the certain teams and just having signage up?
Yeah, so we go to everything. So like physically try and be there. And that's kind of how we came on board with a lot of our sponsors. For example, I work pretty closely with Tea Tree Gully Little Athletics Club, which is near our clinic. And they were actually sponsored by another physio place when I first went out there. I just had a client that I was treating from there, a runner, and we had really good results. And I was like, oh, do you mind if I just come out to the club and, watch you train and have a chat to your coach and that kind of thing? And then went out there and saw they had a physio sign. I was like, oh, do those guys come out here? And we haven't seen them for 3 years. They just, send us $1,000 a year and whack the sign up and that's it. And I was like, okay, no worries. And I didn't want to step on any toes, but I just kept going out every now and then, go to watch training, have a chat to the coaches. And then they were like, oh, this physio place, they don't come out, they sponsor us, but would you guys like to actually become a sponsor? We'll get rid of them because you keep coming out here.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, beauty. So we've been sponsoring them for 4 years now and we have a really strong relationship. So yeah, I go out to all my referrers quite often.
Okay. And so, and you said earlier that you were a runner.
Yep.
And I take it you're still running now?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So you part of any like running groups as well? Do you get involved in that area?
Yeah, so part of one running group at the moment, but not so much like not competitive running, so not like track and field, that kind of thing. My running's more marathon ultra based. I do a lot of that by myself. So I ran my first 70K ultra about 4 weeks ago through the Heisman Trail.
Oh, geez.
I was a very, very broken man after that. I shouldn't have gone to work Monday. That was a problem. Couldn't get down to do any needle wall tests or
how much weight do you lose when you're doing running 70Ks?
A good couple of kilos. Like I looked a bit gaunt by the end of it.
Maybe that's what I need to do. I need to go out there around 70 kilos and get a bit more gaunt.
Look, mate, to be honest, there's easier ways.
Yeah.
2-day fast, I reckon.
Yeah.
Don't know if 70K is the way to go.
Yeah, put the red wine down too. Probably helps.
Oh, that's meant to be good for you though, a glass a day, isn't it?
Yeah, I keep saying that the wine bottles are getting smaller because you only get like 3.5 glasses now out of a wine bottle. So they must be making them smaller.
Health first.
Yeah, I know. So if there was an employee listening to this, or there might be an employer listening to this, what's a final tip that you have for everybody? Well, let's do 2 tips. One for the employee who's thinking about becoming a business owner. What's a tip for them?
I think I'll just start by saying like employers notice what, like if you're doing well, but also notice if you're not doing well. So like if you want to kind of take that next step, you've got to kind of have your ducks in line. You've got to be adding value to the team, like being supportive to other team members and working hard and showing good client care as well. And, bosses pick up on that. Like we know kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's the 1%ers really, like it's making sure you do the thing you say you're going to do and not letting things slip. So, emptying the bin at the end of the day, making sure there's towels in the room. If you see something's a little bit off, straighten that, wipe it down, all that kind of stuff. Cause that's the stuff that really feeds into you becoming a good practitioner, but also like just a good human.
Okay. And then I'll add something under that too, that if you're an employee and you're wanting to buy into the business is don't rush it. Like don't feel that you push it too soon, because I tell you, if you're going to be in podiatry 20, 30 years, you've got heaps of time on your side. So don't feel you have to rush into it. So if you're working somewhere, and I also think for the employees, if you're working somewhere and you don't really like your boss too much, then it's probably not going to be a really great working relationship either.
Yeah.
So, and the other part, so you went 50-50 with Mel?
No, so I'm 10-90. The plan is to buy 10% each year. So I'm at 20 at the moment. So we're kind of on our journey.
Okay, good. So that's what I was going to ask, that if you're an employee and you're buying into it, is you can do bit by bit, but I think it's really important that you like the person that you're working for.
Definitely. Like Mel and I would talk a minimum 5 times a week on the phone, see each other in person 3 or 4 times a week. Like we spend a lot of time messages most days. Like it's a lot of time to spend with one person. So you have to actually make sure you want to be in a partnership, because that's what it is. It's like having a work wife. So you have to make sure you like that person and you want to spend time with them, but also you want to grow together in that business sense. Because if you two are going in different directions or you have different values, like long term, that's not going to work.
No, definitely. So what's your tip for employers? A final tip for an employer?
I think don't be scared to let somebody else in. I think sometimes your business can be your baby, but you also kind of know internally that you need some support. You can't do everything yourself. And especially if you want to try and transition to maybe having a family or stepping back a little bit from consulting or running things, you do need that support. So you've got to actually put that trust in someone else, but at the same time, that person has to actually build that trust for you to trust them. So being open to letting go of a bit of the piece of the baby or piece of the pie, but also trusting that the person you bring on board is going to do the right thing by you and the business.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good tip about the trust thing too, because it works both ways.
It does. It does.
The employer has got to trust the employee, and the employee's got to trust the employer.
Yeah.
And if there's no trust there, you can't build a relationship on shaky foundation. So yeah, trust is really good. So Joe, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast and sharing part of your story. And I like the transition from employee to employer. And I think there'll be a lot of podiatrist listeners that go, I'm going to go and get my boss plastered this holiday season. And
look, mate, it's a good strategy. 100% so far, so it works well.
But I think one of the main thing too is if your employer is your employer and you do nothing with them socially outside of work, then I think it's really hard to then become business partners.
Yeah,
I think
you've got to break down that wall.
Yeah, you've got to have a bit of a social interaction outside of it. You've got to enjoy each other's company away from work. And I had people that worked with me that we had great social times outside of work, but there was always that respect between, I was still the boss, but then had other people who worked with us who never wanted to socially have anything to do with us. And it was always a really difficult sort of relationship, and they didn't really last.
Yeah. Those people kind of filter themselves out eventually.
Yeah. And I used to tell them I'm fun to be with. Go on, let's do something outside.
Bit biased, bit subjective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally biased. So Joe, thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast and sharing your story. Thank you very much.
Mate, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.